In 2018, tweets resurfaced from James Gunn's account that were a little bit controversial, as a result of which Disney kicked him off Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. However, his Guardians of the Galaxy castmates all rallied behind him, and eventually he was reinstated as director of the third Guardians movie. However, in that spot between his firing and his reinstatement, the WB came around, Warner Brothers, and they offered him a job directing a Suicide Squad movie. And the Suicide Squad came out earlier this year. Now, this is one of those films that I wanted to see at the time. I'd heard good things, it looked good, people were raving about it, but of course with COVID and Omicron going on, it was just like, do I want to risk my health in order to see this film? I could probably wait until it comes out on home media. But Christmas happened, and one of the things I got, The Suicide Squad. Finally got to sit down and watch this movie, and people were right. It's madcap. It's got so many deaths in it, so much action, so much fun, and it just goes all in. And honestly, it's brilliant. So we got a few returning cast members such as Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, Rick Flagg, played once again by Joel Kinnaman, and also Captain Boomerang, briefly played by Jai Courtney, but also a whole load more, including Bloodsport by Robert Dubois, played by Idris Elba, Peacemaker, Kristen Smith, played by John Cena, King Shark, voiced by Sylvester Stallone, Polka Dot Man, played by Abner Krill, played by David Dastmalchian, who seems to have his fingers in a lot of comic book movie properties, such as I believe he's in the Dark Knight trilogy, he's in the Arrowverse, the MCU, and the DCEU, Ratcatcher 2, i.e. Cleo Kaza, played by Danielle Melchior, Savant, played by Michael Rooker, The Thinker, played by Peter Capaldi, Blackguard, played by Pete Davidson, even TDK, played by Nathan Fillion. There's a whole lot to this. Javelin, Mongal, Weasel, they're all there, and anyway, this particular review is going to contain a few spoilers. So, the squad is sent on a mission to the fictional island, to a fictional island nation, and their goal is to destroy an old, I believe it's World War II lab called Jotunheim. Basically, there's a project there called Project Starfish that they have to destroy. In order to do this, they have to gain control of the Thinker, i.e. Gaius Graves, played by Peter Capaldi, and ultimately find their way in and destroy any evidence in there. And just from there, it's just pointless to explain any more of it, because just so much happens, and James Gunn's style, it's mad, but it all works together. I mean, the two of the characters that I do want to talk about briefly, because they do appear up in other DC Comics properties, are Bloodsport, Robert Dubois, played once again here by Idris Elba, and The Thinker, played by Peter Capaldi. So let's start with Bloodsport, because he does actually show up in another live-action DC property. He appeared in the first episode of Supergirl's third season, I want to say, and we're comparing Idris Elba and David St. Louis, and I think, while I did do a previous video comparing ones from the DCEU to the Arrowverse, I think on this case the DCEU has to take it with Bloodsport, because while David St. Louis did a fine job as Bloodsport in Supergirl, you can't compete with Idris Elba. I mean, the guy just owns the screen, and one thing I will say about Bloodsport in this is that there was a rumour circulating before, when they brought Idris Elba on board, before we knew who he was playing, that he was taking over from Will Smith as Deadshot. Now, the only part of this that I kind of felt did seem more Deadshot than Bloodsport is the scene with his daughter. And I just kind of felt, I did feel that was a little more Deadshot than Bloodsport, but most of the rest of the film, he's just a joy to watch. I mean, once again, Idris Elba is another one who's got his fingers in multiple pies. I mean, he's in the DCEU now as Bloodsport, he was in the MCU as Heimdall, and he is just a great actor. I mean, even just the scenes where he has to swear, it's like, we're all gonna die. I hope so. Oh, for heaven's sake. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna swear here. But once again, there's a whole load of great ones there, and the other one that I do want to talk about is Peter Capaldi as the Thinker. Now, after Peter Capaldi left Doctor Who, this was the big one people were talking about for his next big role, and seeing him with a shaved head and then him being revealed as the Thinker, it was great to see. And once again, when he's on screen, he just commands it. He speaks with such gravitas that, yeah, you do see him like that. And even when he's revealed that he was in charge of all these experiments on the main thing, because one of the ones we never thought we'd see on screen, one of the creatures in the comics that you never thought you'd see, Starro the Conqueror, a giant sentient purple starfish as the main villain. It's mad, but the Flash made references to it, but they were never brave enough to actually do it as a main character. Here, it's mad and it fits in. Even when Peter Capaldi's Thinker is ultimately murdered by the creature, it's ultimately strange to see. Now, as I said, I do want to talk briefly about him because he's another one who did show up in the Flash TV show, and it's comparing Neil Sandilands with Peter Capaldi. And while I do think Peter Capaldi does a great job here as the Thinker, provides such gravitas, I gotta give the point for this one to the Arrowverse, purely because we had a lot more time with Neil Sandilands' character, and we only have one movie with Peter Capaldi. I mean, I love him in this role, but he's only around briefly, so I gotta talk about that. I mean, there are some... The only minor complaint I would have about this film overall is that I think maybe there's one too many deaths. One too many. Because, not surprisingly, with a film called The Suicide Squad, there's a lot of deaths. I mean, some of them you can see coming, some of them you can't. I mean, talking about some of the other deaths in the film, I mean, Rick Flagg's death, as I said, spoilers, Rick Flagg's death, that was a genuine surprise. I mean, when he is ultimately murdered by Peacemaker, that was a shock, and you do feel legitimately bad. I mean, there are some characters in this film that you expect to die, others you don't expect to die. I mean, let's be honest, while I love Nathan Fillion, TDK was never going to make the end of the film. Neither was Javelin, neither was Blackguard, and neither was Savant. I mean, just none of these characters were due to make the end. And even one that you thought wouldn't make it very far, Polka Dot Man, played by David Dastmalchian, he managed to make it very far, but does end up being killed. But, as I said, I think maybe one too many deaths. Like, there were two characters in the film that three really. Three characters that I personally felt maybe you could have kept them on a little bit longer. Two of them, okay, the first two, Captain Boomerang and the Thinker. Captain Boomerang, played once again by Jai Courtney, and the Thinker, played by Peter Capaldi. My problem with killing these two off is that in the Flash comics, these were big-time foes. Like, even Captain Boomerang, Jai Courtney's Captain Boomerang, even though everyone is going to have their own opinions on the 2016 version of Suicide Squad, Jai Courtney's Captain Boomerang was actually a pretty good part. He was a highlight. So just to see him killed off now in the opening minutes was a little jarring. And as I said, Peter Capaldi's Thinker, I do understand why he was killed off, and it did feel deserved, but I feel like you're killing off two big-time Flash foes in one film. Like, I mean, I know the Flash film is set to do Flashpoint, so maybe they'll find a way of reintroducing these characters, but I don't know. The only other one that I felt really maybe could have done a little bit longer is Mongal, played by Mei Ling Ying. Because, she's the sister of one of Superman's biggest foes, Mongul. Like, you kind of expect Mongal to last a little bit longer than she ends up doing, but no, she ends up taking down a helicopter, and then that's the end of her. It was just like, oh, that's abrupt. Like, I do feel like she could have maybe been another big one in this film, but once again, this film, it's just a whole lot of fun, and I don't think I could do it any justice just describing it here. It's got some great moments, some great characters. I urge you, if you haven't seen this film, like I didn't until right now, just buy it, stick it on, and just have some fun with it, because while I was one who didn't personally think the first Suicide Squad was that bad, the Suicide Squad, it's just a ton of fun. And yeah, get yourself a copy and just watch it through. You won't be disappointed. So there you go, there's my quick little review of The Suicide Squad. Just a whole ton of fun. Anyway, until next time, see ya, and enjoy the rest of your holidays.